In Sabah, Malaysia, Tzu Chi volunteers distributed consolation cash to residents affected by a fire. Tzu Chi volunteers helped a care recipient to fix a leaky house that is built against the mountainside. Welcome to That Headlines. I'm Jenny Lee. Thank you for joining us. In Malaysia, a fire broke out in a village in Petatang County, Sabah, leaving 17 households homeless. Luckily, no one was hurt. After the disaster, Tzu Chi volunteers surveyed the area and distributed consolation cash, providing timely assistance to the residents.
The original appearance of the wooden house has disappeared. Only the sheet metal roofs can be seen everywhere, where crossbeams and pillars were totally burnt. A fire broke out in a village in Petatang County, Sabah, and 17 households were destroyed.
My neighbor didn't have electricity to use, so he used candles instead. Maybe the flames set fire to a nearby curtain, leading to this accident.
The fire was quite violent. Fortunately, villagers escaped quickly, so nobody was hurt.
When I got up, I saw that my child's room was already half burnt. I hurriedly ran away with my kid, yet I could not take any of my valuables.
Upon learning about the news, Tzu Chi volunteers were immediately mobilized to conduct a disaster survey.
Ini saya terus ambil dengan anak saya terus selamatkan.
Sekarang ini kami tinggal di sini di depan rumah kami terbakar nih.
At the moment, we're temporarily staying in a nearby pavilion in front of the fire site. We have no other place to go. Some survivors are staying with their relatives and friends.
Kalau sekiranya yang ada macam keluarga ataupun ada kawan-kawan terpaksa menumpang di rumah kawan-kawan lah begitu.
They don't even have a place to cook and just sleep on the floor. My heart goes out to them.
After completing the disaster survey, the next day, volunteers immediately prepared a relief distribution to provide timely assistance for the survivors.
Kami tetap merasai segala kesusahan yang dialami oleh Anda.
Apart from distributing consolation cash, volunteers also promoted activities such as bamboo can bank and growing meatless, so that the seeds of love can be planted in the lives of the villagers.
In Sabah, Malaysia, a stateless man named Imran was diagnosed with third-stage colon cancer. After he had spent all of his savings on surgery, his aunt sought help from Tzu Chi. Unfortunately, Imran passed away, but his story continued to inspire many to do good deeds.
With the support of his mother, Iran finally reaches his home. Iran, who has been through 3 surgeries, has been hospitalized for a month and therefore seldom saw his family.
I appreciate Tzu Chi for helping me. Now I can go home and reunite with my family.
28-year-old Iran is a stateless person. When he worked in Sabah, he suffered from insomnia and poor appetite. Then he was diagnosed with third-stage colon cancer. As his family used up their savings for the surgery expenses, they sought help from Tzu Chi.
I am really grateful. Without Tzu Chi's help, I would not be able to see my son again. I really did not know how we can find the money to pay the surgery.
After the surgery, Iran felt weak and he could only consume liquid food.
Add warm or cold water to Jingsi multigrain powder. Do not use hot water. Just add 1 or 2 spoonfuls of multigrain powder for him to drink.
Unfortunately, after spending 20 days with his family, Iram's condition worsened and he eventually passed away. Tzu Chi has subsidized the funeral expenses. His aunt has witnessed how volunteers accompanied Iran when he was alive.
I'm strong.
As long as I'm healthy, I won't give up. I will do my best to make money and make monthly donations to Tzu Chi.
RM2 every month.
Berapa?
240.
240
Kalau ada kurang belum saya list, nanti kasih tahu saya mana tahu belum.
Oke, saya kira balik.
Besides making monthly donation, Iran's aunt has recruited 167 donating members in just a month. She even invites them to do recycling together.
Saya memungut dengan kawan-kawan saya ataupun adik-beradik saya.
My friends and relatives and I do recycling together. We go door to door to collect recyclables. My goal is to help people who are less fortunate than I am.
Kamu nampak nih. Tujuan saya menolong ini karena menolong orang susah yang lebih saya.
You lead a harsh life, scavenging for a living. Why do you still donate recyclables to Tzu Chi?
I want to help poor people. We should help people who are facing difficulties.
The villagers help each other, creating a cycle of love and kindness.
In China, a school in the coastal city of Xiamen and a school in the inland city of Gansu have been helping each other since 2017. Recently, Xiamen Tzu Chi volunteers received a donation of out-of-season clothes from manufacturers. They asked the students from Xiamen to sort the clothes before sending them to Gansu.
希望他们通过自己的努力走出大山之后，回到自己的家乡，帮助自己的家乡，不要辜负这些好心人的期望。
Boxes of clothes that still have their tags are out-of-season products donated by clothing manufacturers in Quanzhou and Xiamen. These clothes were sent to Tzu Chi.
You have to have the mentality of choosing clothes for a good friend, or you have to be very careful in helping him or her choose the suit based on your vision.
Cooperating with the government's efforts to deliver love, these batches of clothes received by Xiamen Tzu Chi volunteers are sent to Xiamen No. 10 Middle School to be sorted. The teachers and students use their spare time to help to pack. After more than a month of clothing, selection, and packing, the students of Xiamen No. 10 Middle School finally complete their task. In early May, they personally followed volunteers and teachers to walk into the mountain to visit these disadvantaged students.
Although Ma Jun is the same age as me, but because we're in a different place, he has worked so much harder than me. I think I'm still very blessed.
Because the place where they grow up is different, it creates a different attitude towards life. The children's exchange and true feelings are revealed. Teachers and volunteers also send blessings.
I hope you use your knowledge to fly to a wider horizon.
We don't want to use disposable chopsticks. We must use environmentally friendly chopsticks that we bring ourselves. Chopsticks represent happiness, and wish you peace and happiness in your life. Bless you.
It's 2,500 kilometers from the coast cities to Gansu. However, this exchange opened up the horizons of the children in the mountain and made the students who grow up in the city learn how to cherish their blessings.
不光是送来的这种答案，更是让我们去感受我们应该用怎样的态度去面对我们的生活。
For many people in Taiwan, it's hard to imagine what it's like not to have a roof over their heads. But to Master Zheng Yan, she knows it's a luxury for many in the world to have a safe place to call home. In the last 50 years, Tzu Chi has built dai homes or villages in many different countries, helping those who have suffered great tragedy to recover. Here's a story.
Seeing the Dai News reporter Kang Cong-rong is caught off guard, he completely forgot they were interviewing him today, as he was already at the recycling station like he normally does each morning. On the way home, he cried. He remembered his old days of homelessness and alcoholism, and how Tzu Chi volunteers didn't give up on him by arranging for him to live at the Kangde homes. Though the space is small, this home is very complete. Outside the home, there's a plaque with a year engraved on it. Only the older generation of Tzu Chi volunteers would have participated in this inauguration.
During Typhoon Nina, the master felt for those old and frail seniors without anywhere to go, so then she built a home and gave them a place to live.
Actually, Tzu Chi's home's origin needs to be traced back to before Kangle Home.
Tzu Chi Foundation was established in 1966, and the next year, 1967, we built a home for Uncle Ah Pao. That was his Tzu Chi home.
A few years later, when Typhoon Nina hits Taiwan in 1975, the next year, Kangle Home was completed. One home is about 43 square meters. One radio, a single bed, is where Kang Cong-rong still lives. But now he's changed his life around from his former past. As the city's roads rebuilding plan went on, the old homes were torn down one by one, and Kangle Home is the only one left out of the Tzu Chi homes. Tzu Chi Home may just have lasted a minute, but the story is not over yet.
Tzu Chi villages are larger in scale, and it was during disaster relief when we realized that they really need homes, so we built them.
These homes built with compassion began as a small home and eventually became a village. The first Tzu Chi village was built in Untitled County to help the victims of the 1997 Typhoon Doug. The typhoon blocked roads and tribal villagers from Kualang Bubun were trapped. Tzu Chi brought in supplies to help and even rebuilt homes. The new tribal village opened in 1997. As relief efforts increased as the years go on. Tzu Chi was able to build villages for survivors without homes. In Taiwan, there are 3,202 Da'ai homes. Internationally, there are a total of 19,368 in 11 Asian countries. In Americas, there are a total of 1,680 amongst 4 countries. And in Africa, there are even 69 homes.
The domestic rebuilding of Tzu Chi Village, there are about 3,000 homes so far.
In Taiwan's history, the 88 flood is synonymous with destruction and pain.
In Shanling District, we completed the 700 homes in 88 work days. We built homes with good quality.
After Typhoon Morakot in Kaohsiung to settle the hearts of those in Nanmaxia, Jiaxian, and Taoyuan Township, Tzu Chi built the Sanling Da'ai Grounds. Last year, at the Da'ai Grounds, a Level C long-term care spot was established. 8 dozen seniors surround the table and customize their bags with plants using the flower pounding technique. Long-term care 2.0 has brought them together, spending time like family. After the class, 59-year-old Lin Su Lian returns home. During the AA flooding, she lost her son, and the wound is still fresh when talking about it now.
My eldest son's body was found 3 years later. He was buried underneath a pile of rocks. If I had left my home a few minutes later that day, I would have been carried away too.
As she cross-stitches, she falls into her memory and remembering those events clearly as she nearly did not make it out alive.
Now when it rains severely, I'm still not able to sleep. I would take sleeping pills to help me sleep. I've taken ones for anxiety too.
It's been 11 years and she's still recovering, but thankfully she has a place to call home. Though people may pass, their spirit lives on in us. For Tzu Chi homes to Da'ai villages, these buildings, these incidents, these people fill the same chapter of love and compassion.
Mr. Yo lives in an old house that is built against the mountainside. Whenever it rains, the walls of his house would leak in small streams. Tzu Chi volunteers help him with the repairs to stop the leakage. Take a look.
This old house is more than 60 years old. The mountain is actually one wall of the house, and tree roots block the drainage ditch.
If it rains heavily, all the water will come into the living room. When it rains heavily outside, it's also raining inside, with small streams running through the house. This is quite scary.
Volunteers and social workers conducted a site survey to formulate a repair plan.
Let water come down here first. Let it come down, and then we make a drainage ditch here.
Mr. Yo was in fact one of our cases a few years ago because he lives alone and his physical condition is not very good. After evaluation, we feel that we needed to help him do repairs in his bedroom, his living room, and where he needs it the most.
On the first day of work, repairman cut a drainage ditch along the corner of the floor. He repeated these actions inside and outside the house to make sure that the water flow in the future will be smoother. Other work was done to prevent the house from being invaded by poisonous snakes and small animals. On the second day of repairs, branches at the junction of the roof and the mountain wall were pruned and drainage trenches were given waterproof treatment.
Because his house leans against the mountain, it's more difficult to catch the leaks, as water will sift from the rock on the mountain into here. I have helped him deal with it by adding cement and waterproof paint. After this upgrade, it's much better.
Mr. Yo, who was involved in a car accident in 1985, had an artificial hip joint replacement and herniated disc surgery. For more than 20 years, he had to do rehab 5 days a week and couldn't continue his work. Thankfully, after these repairs, he no longer has to live in a house which leaks every time it rains.
Since the pandemic, New York City has seen a 70% reduction in arts-related jobs. Broadway performances have come to a halt, and actor Bart Chateau decided to perform for charity fundraisers. Although he's out of work, he has chosen a different path.
It's a beautiful day in the apocalypse, a beautiful day for a quarantine. Wash your hands now. Scrub your hands now.
This is the Broadway actor Bart Chateau, using a humorous way to shoot a musical at home to describe real life in the United States during the pandemic.
Keep your mask on.
Although Bart, like many performers, has less work opportunities due to the pandemic, he began doing voluntary online performances to raise funds for charities or religious organizations.
Don't worry, he's COVID negative.
Like this online opera that raised funds for synagogues and low-income families. Bart and his wife Amy are responsible for planning and performing with a group of volunteers that are non-professional actors. Another new experiment during the pandemic included the hosting of an online movie festival.
On February 25th, Mindful Eye Film at Tzu Chi Center will present the two-time Academy Award nominated documentary.
Mindful Eye Film is the online project launched by the Tzu Chi Center this year. In 2016, Bart took part in a short film produced by Tzu Chi in the United States. Due to this familiarity with Tzu Chi, he was invited to be the host of the festival. In addition to guiding the audience, he also led an online discussion and exchange with film directors in different countries.
Making this film.
So we were given this project as a signed project.
6 documentaries and short films, mainly with the theme of the environment, religion, and compassion, are released every 2 months. The 2 documentaries premiered at the end of the month both discuss the crisis of climate change from the perspective of beekeepers.
This is the first time I've actually hosted a film series that is environmentally conscious. I never knew too much about beekeeping until I watched Honeyland and this other film as well, Stung by Climate. So it educates me.
Bart's own love for the environment and nature is due to his wife Amy. The two have been married for 10 years and have visited Africa, the Middle East, India, Pacific Islands, the North and South Pole to personally understand the conservation of endangered animals.
My wife and I have a passion for animals and a passion for travel and a passion for, keeping cultures alive, and all of these things are hugely part of our lives. I'm going to turn this back on.
Their home decoration is inspired by African grasslands. Couples are truly animal lovers. Amy stopped eating beef burgers in 1988 and did not eat chicken after 2006 and finally quit seafood. She has been a vegetarian for more than 10 years.
Because I had a terrible dream that chickens were chasing me. Giant chickens were chasing me and they were bleeding, and it was so upsetting. I knew I should never eat chickens again.
My wife reminds me every day, are you going to do this or not? And she always says, animals are friends. And she's like, don't eat that pet. And, if it's, it has a face and it's cute. So my wife is, she pokes fun at me a lot about that, but she's really been inspirational for me.
But as you can see in here, everything is plant-based. We have our Beyond Meat, Beyond Burger. I'm trying.
Under the influence of Amy, Bart gradually reduced his meat consumption. During the pandemic, the two of them reduced their meals from 3 meals to only 1 meal a day. Bart said that his wife's influence and Tzu Chi's call for environmental protection should lead Americans to learn from this pandemic.
I think we've had to make major allowances and major sacrifices with COVID, with this pandemic. We need to start with eating less and then possibly starting eating less meat, because it's not going to be sustainable.
We need your help, and this is why. So Chris has...
Due to the impact of the pandemic, the couple who love performing are now dedicating themselves to the environment and disadvantaged groups, and even helping friends in need during this tumultuous period of pandemic.
On May 9th, Tzu Chi volunteers in Tokyo, Japan celebrated Buddha Day with global volunteers. Under the pandemic, the best etiquette is to keep social distance. Thus, the meeting was held via online conferencing.
In the Buddha Hall, social distancing is being kept in order to celebrate Buddha Day. After the prayer, an online conference was held.
This year, the Tzu Chi Japan chapter celebrated Buddha Day via online conferencing, and there were many challenges to this. A lot of videos have to be pre-recorded, and many volunteers took on duties such as sound control, event management. It was a test to our team working abilities.
Being the master of ceremonies once again, Ida Tatsunari worked hard to ensure everything is okay.
I had to switch screens and music, and everyone helped me with it. Thus, the event went on smoothly.
Young people's involvement brought in new technologies to the traditional Buddha Day.
I'm so happy that many new young people came in to help with sound control, event management, and guiding the ceremony. The overall age gap has been reduced.
During the pandemic, Tzu Chi volunteers in Japan held onto their good beliefs as they gathered to pray for a peaceful year.
Tzu Chi volunteers in Sydney, Australia held Buddha Day celebration last week. There was also a tea ceremony for parents to celebrate Mother's Day. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.